Can't afford another failed craniotomy.
Green!
Application terminated.
If I fail again, our results could be dire. This kind of attack that certain people would kill for if they could access it. Even Zel's the only ones I trust.
I know how important this is to you. I'm just saying, at what cost?
Financial systems, social structures, hunger. We can bring tyrants to their knees.
Hackers are connected. We control 80% of the nodes on the grid because of loyalty and discipline.
Well, lucky for you, the devil wants a partner. Tell me about Marcus Grimm, also known as RZR.
That's a death warrant.
You want me to wait for everybody to die or just you?
Bribe him or beat him, all gloves off. Marcus Grimm is officially an enemy of the state. Smoke him out.
Tech 3 media friends, welcome. I am super excited today. GALA Films has, released RZR a couple months ago. Now just getting an Emmy nomination for Mina Savari, which is massive for this space. We're talking about a Web3 show with Emmy credibility, and today we have with us the creator, the lead actor, the triple threat, the technologist, David Bianchi. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, brother. Listen, happy to be here. It's it's been a long journey in this process, and going all the way back to beginning when I entered the Web3 space, back in March of 2021. It's just been a series of events that has led up to this thing, and you're absolutely right. It's monumental. The Emmy is globally the symbol for excellence in television, and we've achieved that, and it's really fucking exciting.
And then some. We're going to get into that and sort of the process that has to take place in order to get to that level of execution by artists working together and collaborating together. We're going to generally talk about how us builders, creators can approach this, creating for a community authentically, as you've done with this show, as well as just getting those famous people involved, those big wheelers and dealers, the people that you need to make this thing go. And we were just talking earlier about sort of why I love having you on this show is because, you say you're an open book. You are one of the space's, I think, best educators. You took your camera with you through this entire process, did a journal, and I had the pleasure of sitting next to you at Miguel Faust's first screening ever of Calladita, which congratulations, Miguel, for getting distribution with Beam. They have a nice exclusive distribution deal with them. That's super fantastic. And they're getting that movie out, that feature film out. Concurrently, as RZR is coming out, which is super exciting times for Web3. But you were so giving in that process and in that room, talking about process, ways to improve process, ways to improve story and craft narrative. RZR, take us through that process, because it seems to have everything involved, all those tools and all those elements coming together, and it's astonishing that you've executed this.
Well, I appreciate it, man. And big shout out to Miguel Faust and what he's been able to accomplish with his project as well. Good dude, smart director. Listen, RZR has always been the brainchild of, to me, something that needed to speak to the Web3 community, because when GALA Film was still like an embryonic idea, I had actually pitched them a feature film that I had already completed, that I was like, hey, why don't we just, fractionalize this feature film and blah, and release it that way. And at the time, the head of operations says, no, we'd like to do something from scratch. And this is true story. And I speak openly about this, when I was talking to leadership on the phone. They're like, well, what else would you like to do? Well, I knew there was going to be budgetary limitations, right? And then I also thought about the Web3 community and sort of like retention culture. So I was like, well, how about we make like this short form? I've got this idea. It's going to be like this short form series. It'll be a TV show. It's like Black Mirror meets Mr. Robot. We'll include elements of cryptocurrency. We'll include elements of like degen culture, and sort of create a show that speaks to the Web3 community. And that was basically my pitch, and they said, okay, great. Can you send me
basically beat up people who use cash in this world? In this world, you beat up people who use cash. Is that what made GALA the perfect partner? They're going to beat up people who use cash to try and see your film. I call it a film because it does seem like a film.
Well, yeah. Well, I just wanted to create a show that stuck and spoke to the philosophies and the themes that I was so conditioned to, in the degen circles and in the crypto circles and the NFT circles and whatnot. So, I pitched that show to them, and they're like, yeah, send me a deck. And I was like, okay, yeah, let me tighten it up. I'll send it to you tomorrow morning. I had no deck. I had no idea. I had no title. I didn't know anything. I didn't know the name.
This is
I
some
didn't know
Francis Ford Coppola stuff here,
This
guys. This is
so literally,
legendary.
so like true story. That night, that evening, I went to work, and literally overnight, I came up with the name of the show. I came up with the main 5 characters. I came up with a synopsis for episodes 1 and 2, and then I put together a visual lookbook, and then I sent it over. And then 2 weeks later, GALA said that they wanted to do it. And from that moment, that was May 2022, and I have just worked incessantly all the way until where we are now. So it's been over 2 years of just, super, super intense, minimum of 12 hours a day. Sometimes I when we were in production, I had a day where I worked 32 hours straight with no sleep. I mean, it's just the nature of it. You just got to do what you got to do, because and that's the thing, when you're a builder, right? When I'm working for somebody else, it's a slaughterhouse. But when I'm building, I know that I'm in my purpose and I'm creating something. So there is no in my vocabulary. There are no mountains or walls. There's only obstacles, right? And so to me, it was brutally important to be able to create something that I think that the blockchain community would watch and respect. At the end of the day, I want to create something that I would want to watch. Right. So it needs to behave like Blade Runner, like Children of Men. It needs to have elements of like Viggo Mortensen, The Road. And, it needs to have like these dark tech noir cinematic themes. And to your point, saying that it feels like a movie, because as an artist, I follow the languages of cinema first. I happen to deliver it in a format that television is attuned to. But in terms of light, picture, sound, it's all cinema first. And I'm an artist first.
Sure.
And so I hired.
It's clear that passion really led you through. And who is it that you're bringing in that process? You're like, okay, it's a go. Who is it that you need as an artist, as a creator? Who did you pull into the fold? You like, okay, we're going to do this. I need this person. I need this person. I need this person. And were you able to basically name your entire crew and cast and say, yeah, I want these people?
I mean, in the negotiations on creating RZR, GALA kept every promise to me. They led creator forward, and they allowed me to have creative control. I have final cut. I did all the key hiring. I brought all my executive staff in, my team members. I was able to make all casting controls. And I mean, even to the point that I shot the entire show, and I didn't even show them a single daily when we were in production. I picture locked the episodes before I even showed them a rough cut on episodes 1 and 2. So everything that you see in RZR, every frame of it has my fingerprints on it, from art direction to production design to my camera operators, even to what kind of camera we shot on. So the first person that I brought on was Daniel J. Pico. He's my writing partner, and I've been working with him for 19 years. I've been producing independent film, just as a caveat for the audience. I've been producing independent film since 2003. So, you know what I mean? I'm no rookie. You don't get to produce stuff that's at the level of RZR because he just kind of tripped and fell into the shit. It's like I've been sharpening my Bushido knives for 2 decades in Hollywood. And from there, I had to get my producing partner, Noel Hubble, who, production managed Rustin and Don't Worry, Darling, and, and 45 episodes of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And then came in my cinematographer. So, as it relates to my core team, there's not someone on my core team that I've been working with for less than 7 years. These are people that are my family, and we're 3-point stance. We're on the front lines, and I'd go to war with them, and I trust them.
And it's brilliant that you were given the creative freedom, and that's like the dream of every artist. But also I saw the support after the cameras stopped rolling and after the thing was made, in publicity. Something that GALA was sort of they kept pushing and promoting in a way that made me get a sense of the creative freedom plus the support was. You were like Web3 Tom Cruise, my friend. It was just like we're gonna support this person and this project with every means we have possible. What did that feel like? Because that's rare. As you said, you've been in independent cinema for a long time. What you have, sir, is rare.
Yeah, I'm overjoyed by the support, I mean, because it's every creator's dream to be able to, basically create their masterpiece and then also do it with the infrastructure of a team. It was a really new experience for me because I am an independent filmmaker. I have always been a DIY guy. Like, how do you take $100,000 and make a movie? How do you take 50 G's and make a feature? I've literally made a feature for $90,000, right? It's like, I know how to do that. I know how to make nothing. something from nothing, if you will. But when it came down to actually working with a team, it was incredibly refreshing. I was like, oh, this is how it kind of feels in the studio game. Like, we have a marketing team and we have an operations team and we have engineers in the background. And, you know, if I could tabulate it, I'd say up to now, there's been over 700 people that have in some way, shape, or form have worked on RZR. So, amazing. I mean, when you quantify that, that's a staggering amount of human beings. And I'm grateful that, you know, my experience that preceded RZR gave me the wherewithal to know how to delegate that, but also know how to receive it and not feel uncomfortable, because it can make a lot of people uncomfortable.
It's a big step. No, it's a huge step to go from, you know, being and doing something and doing it indie and doing it all yourself, and then kind of having to organize and orchestrate as a delegator, as you said, with a massive, massive team. That is a huge trip up for a lot of creators when they start working with teams and they start working. You're a very, very easy to talk to person, but what tips would you give somebody making that step into delegation?
I mean, the most important thing is trying to work with people that you like. Right. One of the things that happens is oftentimes we're so busy on trying to get the deal closed that we lose sight of the fact that we're working with human beings. Like, get to know someone first, understand who they are, know that you don't have all the answers. Yeah, it's very, very important. Try to appreciate people's perspectives, because irregardless of whether people are getting paid or not, they're still working on behalf of the larger project. And then everything is a collaboration. And that one of the most important things that I love is I hire experts in their specific categories, because they're going to take my ideas and then they're going to elevate them. For example, you know, I want to be educated by people in my camera departments, or educated by people that are like writing the code, or educated by people that are building the UI UX, for example. I think really, really liking people is really, really a really core thing, because I always say it facetiously, but I kind of mean it. Whenever I go into production with my team, I'm always like, hey guys, look, we're going in production. So we're only making a movie. Let's just hope we're still friends by the time we're done. Because it stresses people out. It really, really stretches people to the limit.
It does, especially when you're working those crazy hours. And, you know, when you're pulling something together like that, you're also including inevitably new people to your process. Yeah. You have your core team. You're pulling together new people. You're pulling together, you know, probably a cast that you might not have worked with. I don't know if you had you know, known Mina or Chris or Danny. Let's talk about that. How to get those famous people into the project, because there's a lot of layers there to that. And you pulled it off really, really well. This cast is phenomenal. It's got a lot of really great surprises, and certainly a caliber of performance by Mina that warrants an Emmy nomination.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I always try to bring my family in as much as I can. Danny Trejo, I had produced a project with him previously, so I had a relationship there. Emilio Rivera, we worked on a movie together, I think 15 years ago or so, a movie called Philly Brown, the movie that made Gina Rodriguez a star, and we went to Sundance with that one. You know, actors like Christopher Marquette, never worked with him before. Mina Suvari had never worked with her before. Sedereki Wenicolo and Mimi Davila had never worked with them before. So I tend to believe that I'm a pretty good judge of energy, and it really, really boils down to a few things. So how do you get the famous people? Like, obviously you need a budget because people need to get paid, but more importantly, especially as it relates to actors, and I'll speak as an actor, when people offer me a job as an actor, there's a couple things that I always ask. Who's directing? If it's a new director, then my next question is who's producing? If it's a solid producer and a new director, I'm like, okay, who's the cinematographer? Because I want to know that if I'm going to give you all of me, that you're going to protect my likeness, that you're going to give me an incubator that is going to be aesthetically appropriate for where I am in my career. So that's really important. And then the next piece of that is, okay, now that I've vetted the team, let's read the script. Right. And that is probably the process, and mostly the process that Mina Suvari went through. You know, she read the words. I mean, obviously she vetted the team, and Claire Kuntz is our casting director, and she's at CAA. She cast a show called Beef that won a bunch of awards on Netflix. And so those relationships were binding there. But when Mina read the script, she was just like, this is mind blowing. She's like, she was grateful. She's like, I never get to play the tough girl. She's always the girl. And so to be able to let her be antagonistic cyber crimes detective in this alternative dystopian Los Angeles, riddled with cryptocurrency and metaverses and artificial intelligence, she was in. you know, and that was a real honor for me. I was like, wait a second, American Beauty is going to be in RZR. Let's fucking go, you know. And
she was like unreal, especially in those interrogation scenes. It really pops as to the character that she's got a lot more going on than just being an antagonist. I think there's a level, especially in the scene work, of control of the scene, of just sort of like the guile that she's able to incorporate into that character is amazing. What were some of the guidelines and the framework that you gave her in which to operate?
Sure. Every main character, me and Dan Pica, we wrote a pretty significant backstory on each of these characters. You know, where were they born? Where were they raised? How are they treated? You know, Detective Thompson had a lot of abuse in her childhood. As a result of that, came into a life with a single father. And, you know, grew up in a pretty gritty neighborhood. She came into becoming a police officer, was a beat cop. And then obviously because of her height, her stature, and being a woman, she always had to muscle herself around. And so that was a little bit of sort of like the emotional, physical backstory they were able to give to Mina. So she was able to sort of design some of that subtext in these performances because, you know, there is a certain way that a woman that is 5'2" in this environment would have to comport in order to sort of like maintain that sense of power, right? And not be too over the top with it. You know, I'm very into grounded, subdued performances. I don't want to watch stuff where the score tells you how to feel. I don't want to do anything where people are looking in and getting that spin. Leave the melodrama for somebody else, all right?
Like this show? What do you mean?
Yeah. In a world, you know, I want to leave all that for people that want to make that stuff. But for me, it's like, if you're not able to tell a human story and really tap into a human condition, like you just described something that you related to with Mina's performance, you're like, wow, this is layered. This is complex. This is textured. And that's the stuff that she was able to achieve. And I think that with the script we were able to guide her. And, you know, her and I, we were sharing music back and forth when we were going into production, and she was very, very inquisitive about the script. She wanted to know intentions. She really wanted to know where she was in this world and why she was in this world and what was happening behind the eyes in each scene. And that stuff really, really plays out. Obviously, she got nominated for a Primetime Emmy. So here we go.
Did anybody from the, like, you know, they're all inquisitive, and I'm sure a lot of those questions relate to the actual material, the actual storyline and the intricacies of Web3, cryptocurrency, NFTs. You know, you're bringing a lot to bear in terms of, you know, understanding what our community is, we know, but stepping into somebody who, you know, might not quite understand that world. How difficult was that sell and trying to make them understand that world?
Well, it was tricky. And, you know, it's funny when I was going into production, I remember, now we had an average crew of about 110 people every single day, and it went up and down. At one point we had like 300 people on set one day with a bunch of background players. And the majority, and I mean the majority, like 90% of that entire community of people did not have a MetaMask or a ledger. Like I literally felt like my umbilical cord was cut because I didn't feel that Web3 pump, you know? And, I did the best that I could to help people understand the texture of the world. And, you know, me and Mina had a lot of conversations about all that. And, you know, Emilio Rivera and the Land family and some of the lore that I built around like the grid zone and these sorts of things. But at the end of the day, man, it's a human story, right? I always say that one of the most important visual effects in cinema is this. Because if you can't connect to this, nothing matters around the technology. See, because in the world of RZR, what makes RZR work is that it's the hero's journey. It's a flawed guy who believes he can make the world a better place through technology. And the technology around Grimm and around Mina Suvari is just texture. Because we're connecting with a human story, and we want to root for Grimm, our protagonist and our hero, to be able to achieve the ideal that he believes is achievable. Right. And then the twists and turns that he goes through. So when we look at it in that respect, that's what makes the series work so well. You know, Children of Men is a great example of how it's a human condition story and not a story about technology. A lot of sci-fi gets lost in their own sauce because they get so lost in their technology and their hyperbole of their spaceships and teleporting and coming up with their own rules. And then they break their own rules in the third act. And it's just like you lose the audience. Because we're people.
I get lost in the sauce just on a daily basis here in Web3. But like, how many did you make any conversions for us, in this space? Like, of all those people that walked into your set, did many walk off with a MetaMask? Did they walk off with an understanding and maybe even a connection to the community?
Yeah, and shout out to Ledger. I reached out to Ledger and they ended up sending me about 20 nanos. And I think
Nice.
I gave out about 15 to 20 nanos to different crew members, and I gave them all a tutorial on what to do and how to do it.
Wow, that's great.
People really learn what NFTs are, and I went really hard in the paint to make sure that I could bring in proper artists into the community. So like, King of Midtown, he curated a lot of the artists inside the show. I reached out to Coldy, Osinachi, Giant Swan, all these artists are featured, Lucio Poletti, all these artists, legendary artists are featured in the show because I wanted to give voice to those guys. And, I did some really cool decentralized stuff where I actually did a casting on Twitter. I put up an audition page and I said, hey, upload your audition to Twitter, hashtag it RZR casting. And then we took the top 25 and I let the NFT holders decide on who got a principal speaking role at RZR. I took my hands off the wheel. So these are some of the decentralized ideas that I wanted to bring into the space. And I definitely think that we converted a good handful of people.
Which one of those ideas worked the best in your opinion? Because I know a lot of people come into this and think like, oh, well, we can just NFT this and do this and just throw Web3 at it. But that comes with a lot of pitfalls and a lot of time, a lot of spinning your wheels. Which ones work the best for you in terms of execution?
Well, it's interesting that you say that, and I think that the Web3 community, like, they've gotten a little spoiled, like people in the Discord just like they demand control. Like, why didn't I have an opinion on the script? And listen, dude, go fuck yourself. Really? Like, take it easy. Like, seriously, like at the end, look, film is an autocracy for a reason. It's just like if you go into a fine dining restaurant, there's one Michelin chef, and then there's a sous chef, and then there's line cooks, and then there's prep cooks, and then there's there's expediters and there's runners, like because there's such a thing to be said about too many chefs in the kitchen.
100%.
The things that did work, I think, was really like this casting. I thought really worked really well. The community really responded to that, and that was groundbreaking. It's never been done before. You were able to upload your audition to Twitter. And I even said, if you don't like it, delete it and do it again. Watch what your competition's doing, delete it and do it again, right? As long as you make the deadline, who cares, right? So that I thought was beautiful. We did a table read of the entire show publicly in Hollywood in front of 120 people with a black carpet, and celebrities came. And that's, again, in an artistic decentralization. The studios never do that. They would never read an entire script out loud and give it to the public. Just wouldn't happen. And then also the NFT collection. Now, we dropped our first NFT collection at the floor of the FTX crash. So it was a nightmare. There was blood all over the sidewalk. Like, nobody wanted to buy anything. But we still sold about 25% of our supply. And those collectors, those early on collectors, were really part of the community. And I think that was one of the things that worked really well because it bound people to the project early on. And we didn't sell NFTs to fund the project. The project was already funded, which was, I think, a more important business model because it's hard to sell an NFT for a speculative project that might release 18 to 24 months later and might be good and might get distribution, and might not fall apart and all the things because, cinema is very complicated. And so because people knew that they were already investing in a project that was coming, there was some new promise to that. And I think that worked really well. Did I lose you?
As you said, there needs to be sort of this 300-pound gorilla that attacks and brings this thing to bear, and your effort in it kind of reminded me of Hiroyuki Sanada in Shogun. If you haven't seen Shogun, please go see Shogun. Stop what you're doing, go see Shogun. It's an amazing thing, and they did it behind the scenes where he's the lead of this. He's Lord Toranaga. He's doing the scenes and he's killing the scenes. Cut. Dude just takes off like, one piece of his thing, and then he's back into it. He's helping other actors with lines. He's helping other performers, with stunt stuff. And I saw a lot of that with you. As you said, doing those 30-hour days, etc., might not be sustainable. Is there something that you're going to try and do? And, fingers crossed, I don't know if it's been announced yet, if there's a season 2, season 3, 4, there should be. But like, what are you going to change about the process moving forward?
Well, it's a great question, and I love Shogun. It's an epic show. Watched every episode. one of the things that is akin to Toranaga, which you just described, is kind of the role that I had to play, because I'm the lead creator, so all artistic decisions, because this is a world that I built, so I had to get everybody in my brain, right? And so all creative decisions had to come through me. I was able to sort of delegate logistical decisions to my producing partner, Noel Hubble. But as it relates to art direction, production design, props, all these sorts of things, wardrobes, costumes, all that stuff had to happen through me. So there's all that. And then two, I'm the lead actor. So I'm basically
that's enough. But you're also doing the lead actor. Yeah.
And I'm in 85% of the scenes, and we're shooting 7.5 pages a day. So if you understand what that means in terms of its pace, that means sometimes we did one take and we had to move on. We just didn't have time. 3 takes was a luxury. So, I went into production. One of the things that I knew I could control was my dialogue. So 2 weeks before we went into principal photography, I was off book for 90+ pages of dialogue, completely off book, because that was the only thing I knew I could control. I can't control the variables and the acts of God and all the things that are going to come into the production workflow. So having all that stuff, it's like once cameras are rolling and the camera's like right here, 3 inches away from my face, and I have to play grim and I got to deliver a performance. And as soon as you say cut, I got to step out of that, because now I need to answer questions. And I need to be, I'm monitoring, making sure that we're staying on pace, that we're staying on flow, and all the sorts of things. And I had an incredible team that gave me the ability to trust the process. See, when you think about this kind of collaboration, and there's so much pressure, right? Because you only have so many days to shoot and you have to deliver. Otherwise, you run out of money. I had a cinematographer that I knew would fire. I had an assistant camera team that I knew would fire. I had a sound mixer. I had a first AD, my production designers, everybody delivered in a way that was above and beyond. And without that above and beyond sort of, empowerment, I wouldn't have been able to trust the team around me in order to fall into the performance. Now, as it relates to the 30-hour day, that is unsustainable, but sometimes you just got to do what you got to do. But the reason for that, Minty, is because if I didn't deliver 150%, shame on me to ask my team to deliver 110. I have to deliver, and I have to be excellent in every step that I take. They need to watch me and be like, I'm inspired by that guy. Like, let's fucking get to it, because this dude is a savage, right? And so when you deliver that kind of sort of conviction for the project, that trickles down. And that gives 100%. People a desire to want to step up and show up. Season 2, it's going to be bigger, right? So time, money, resources, right? In cinema, we say you get good, fast, and cheap. You can only have 2. And so we're going to have a bigger budget, which will allow for more production days, which will allow for a slower pace in our production schedule, which will allow for more curation of shots. It will allow for more coverage and a better way to manicure the show. And so that's what I'm looking forward to, is that now that we've done what we've done and we've shot, by all intents and purposes, a pretty narrow budget, we're able to step up and do something more powerful, and that's very really fantastic. Season 2 is going to really, really excite people.
And it's for no spoilers, but for those who watched along, you should, if you haven't. We're gonna put the link down below. But the season 1 ends in a bit of a cliffhanger, so it's gonna be very interesting. Speaking of Shogun, how to enter that world in season 2 is very, very exciting. And again, I hope this is one of many times that we have you here on the show, because I find your work very interesting, as well as as an artist. As a creator, being able to pull all these things together, as you said, takes a lot of experience that has to happen before that, and to see it hitting on all cylinders for you on this show is really, really exciting. It's super, super inspiring for a lot of people I know, and we just hope to be able to follow you on this journey. And yeah, I'm super excited about what you have your eye on next. Are you just so focused on RZR and kind of tuning out those other opportunities? Because I know when you do a show of this magnitude, sometimes like a studio might be like, oh, hey, who's that? Or an agency is like, oh, hey, we should sign that dude.
Yeah. There have been several opportunities that have arisen as a result of RZR. And I'm very excited. I'm entertaining all things, right? Because at the end of the day, it's like we do things independently so that we can rise to a higher level. Right. And I'm looking forward to exploring all those things. I want to figure out how can we continue to perpetuate Web3, content and Web3 practices into the Web2 world. And we're doing it pretty seamlessly with a cool series like RZR. You know, you can go to GALA Film and you can set up an email account and you can watch for free, and you don't have to know anything about crypto just to click and watch. And if you want to get into the Web3 components, the watch and earn ecosystem, if you want to buy a mystery box or a moment pack, and then you could collect shards and you could put the puzzle pieces together to unlock never before seen scenes that I directed that aren't in episodes 1 through 8, and then get into the watch and earn, you could do that. But if you just want to go and watch, you could just do that. And that's one of the most, I think, important things about what's happening, is that we're bringing people into Web3 without the need to buy something, without the token gating, if you will, without the need for a Web3 wallet. It's just show up and watch. And if you're immersed, then you can go deeper. As far as the opportunities is concerned, I'm an entrepreneur, man. I'm by definition spinning multiple plates. So I've got a slate of feature films that my company Exertion Films is currently packaging. Definitely diligently focused on season 2. The treatment's already built. The schedule's already built. Looking to begin a writer's room within the next 60 days or so. And so as long as I have infrastructure, I can juggle as many projects as my little heart will desire. And, you know, in the next 2 to 4 years, you know, my vision is to be a showrunner that is creating multiple shows, that is telling high cinematic stories through a diverse and equitous and inclusive contact lens, bringing minorities into the play. You know, I want to give you a very important nugget that's very important to me around RZR, is that in the show, there's 60 speaking roles and only 5 of them are Caucasian. On this show, 15 non-union actors became SAG eligible. Nice. 4 extras got principal speaking roles. 5 stunt guys I offered principal speaking roles to. 60% of my heads of department are women. You know, these things are very, very important to me, to be able to provide people with opportunities and to build bridges for people, to be able to give people an opportunity to grow and to rise. Because the show is going to come and go, but how you affect people's lives is the stuff that really defines you and defines your legacy. That's the stuff that's really, really important to me. So I'm curious to see. Go ahead.
So yeah, one of those steps I do want to touch on, because there is a Screen Actors Guild component to this, and something that, you know, for creators and builders to understand. Part of getting the famous people on there is you have to be a SAG show. You have to have, you know, sort of the blessing. Was there any confusion on their end as to what GALA was and why you were paying actors in GALA? You know, just, you know, was there any sort of like, you know, sort of confusion as to you know, what that distribution entity was when dealing with them?
Sure. No, I mean, the Screen Actors Guild is basically, they look at it from a very, you know, brick and mortar perspective. Like, okay, there's an LLC. This LLC is funded. You know, you show that you show that you have proof of funds, and then you go through and you decide based on your budget. You determine what contract you're going to use. You submit that contract, and then you're provided a signator, and then that signator vets you, and then you execute the contract. And the production workflow is the same. But you know, no illusions. Like, on this show, nobody got paid in crypto, right? Everybody got paid in fiat currency. You know,
I'm totally teasing too, by the way.
I know. To be honest, and I do have a big vision for this. My big vision for this is that, like, if we get into a world, knock on wood, that RZR can become a highly profitable venture, I am looking forward to taking a certain percentage of those nets and then going back to every single member of my crew, not just the actors and the directors and the writers, but everybody down, all the way down to the PA, and saying, hey man, I got $250 for you, but it's in stable coin. You got to set up a Web3 wallet. Do you want it? And of course they're going to say yes. So then I can establish a waterfall through a smart contract. And now what will happen is every single person on the crew should be able to earn a residual. And then they can go back to Lionsgate. They can go back to Paramount. They can go back to whomever they're working for and be like, hey man, I work for David Bianchi and Exertion and GALA Film, and they paid me a residual. Like, why can't you do that? Right. And then that is how we can evoke real change. Now, once people have trust that they can receive money in that way, then maybe for season 2, I can say, hey, by the way, I'll pay you in fiat, or if you want, I'll pay you in stablecoin. Right. Right. And then we can sort of like begin that revolutionary change. If we can,
and if they say cash, you beat the hell out of them, like you did that character who tried to pay for cash, pay for his drug deal in cash. Really, this is also so super inspiring, man. And you know, I hope, you know, again, follow David on this journey, because he is very transparent about this journey, and you learn a lot by following David in this journey. And hope to have you back, because I think you're doing such amazing work. And again, I understand and I see the ideas that are percolating. you have the execution of the art down. You know how to do that. We're talking to an artist, but you're also incorporating a lot of the technology and a lot of the entrepreneurism that really excites this space in a big way. And I think you're one of the few that can actually execute it. So I'm rooting for you, brother. And yeah, we're here to support. So thank you so much for coming on.
Well, look, thank you so much for having me, and big congratulations on everything that you're doing. You're leading the space and you're providing a container for people to learn about their own entrepreneurship. So, man, congratulations on your rise, and thank you very much for having me. I hope that everybody goes out there and watches RZR. Go to film.gala.com and you can watch it for free. It's there. And it's
that easy. I think that's the thing, is like, I don't need a wallet, or you just go to the website and then you just watch it. It's simple.
Yeah, it's that easy. And we build a Web3 wallet for you in the background. So, buy a mystery box, buy a moment pack, get involved in the shards if you're in crypto. And if you're not, just dive in and enjoy the show.
Fantastic. Thank you, David.